Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and we are back with episode 3 of Project Police Interceptor, where we wire together all our police lights. We have front visor lights, we have a rear traffic advisor, we have a LED light bar, we have little LEDs, and we have a dash cam. Plus, miles and miles of wire. I cannot wait to get this all in there and see this thing light up. Depending on the laws in your area, you might or might not be able to wire lights to your vehicle. If you're a first responder, you might be able to run red and blues, you might be able to run just blues, or you might be able to run orange lights. It all depends on your local laws. If you're not a first responder, police officer, first aid, firefighter, this video is still going to show you how to wire stuff properly and just the process of building a police car, all the little intricacies that it has, the little features that the P71 has, and it's just kind of a unique build, like whoever gets to build a police car, not many people, so it's pretty sweet. Now that being said, we have the permits for the state that this car is going to be used in. Now listen closely. This car specifically is being used by a police officer to go to and from work. He lives 2 hours away from where he works. He encounters many traffic accidents and many officer assists where he pretty much sees a police officer on the side of the road that needs help. That is why this car is being made. So he's always the first one there at an accident, or he's always assisting officers. He was almost hit once because his daily driver doesn't have lights on it. It's not going to be used to pull people over or whatever you guys are fantasizing about. It's strictly going to be used for assisting in accidents and assisting officers on his way to work. I think I've made that pretty clear, so let's get to the fun stuff. Oh, by the way, check this out. How good do those wheels look? I need to clean up the tires and make them look black, but those rims are looking gorgeous on this car. And I'm gonna have a video all on how to paint your rims. I'm gonna be painting them black. This is what they used to look like. They had these cheap hubcaps. I don't really like the look on those, and neither did the officer, so we're changing it up. Underneath those hubcaps are these disgusting rims, and then after we paint and prep those rims, it turns into this. Now that video is going to be awesome, so stay tuned for that. And now that you got all the background information, let's begin episode 3 of Project Police Interceptor. So as you guys know, whenever you do a project, whether it's a big project like Project Police Interceptor or a little project like putting in a light bar, you want to outline what you're doing. So there are 5 main things we're going to be doing for this project. The first thing is going to be installing these red and blue traffic advisors and also a dash cam. The second thing we're doing is mounting a rear traffic advisor. This sits on the rear deck, just like that. The third thing we're doing is mounting a light bar in the front grille area. The fourth thing we're doing is we're going to mount these mini LEDs right under the bumper, which is going to look awesome. You just wait and see. And the fifth thing we're going to do is we're building a center console to mount all the controls and switches in. I'll go over how to make a center console, you'll see the whole process, but for now, it's going to house our siren box here. That's going to go like somewhere over here. There's going to be switches to control the lights right over here, and then this is going to be a compartment that could hold the gun for transportation to and from the station. All the wires from everything we're wiring up, from the visor lights to the rear traffic advisor to the front lights to the siren, they're all going to be wired right here. So as we install everything, the wires will end up right here. So that's the importance of having a plan for your build. Trust me, draw it out, think it out, whatever you need to do, it'll make the project go as smooth as possible. Now let's get started. Alright, the first lights we're going to mount are these front visor lights. The reason why these are called visor lights is because these clip right to where the visor meets the headliner. Pretty simple install, firemen and EMS use these all the time. It's a hideaway type light. The install looks clean, so let's get it in there. Alright, we'll do one visor at a time. We'll get these out of the way, and we can see it's going to slide right underneath this. So we just need to loosen that up just a little bit. And the same here, there's 3, we loosen that up just a little bit, and then these forks are gonna slide in just like that. Alright, so let's loosen these up. And I'm gonna have to... fake ears. And the officer is calling me. What are the odds of that? And I'm gonna have to call him back, because we're getting episode 3 of Project Police Interceptor done. So we're gonna loosen up these 3 bolts that hold the visor in. Okay, so with these visor bolts loose, we could slide the lights in. Just need to slip these bad boys in there. Alright, and they're in. This side looks great, but the problem is, this side doesn't want to go all the way in, because we have 1, 2, 3 bolts holding it in, and one of the bolts is blocking the fins from sliding in. So I'm going to trim one of the fins so we could slide it in more, and then that should work. And just make sure the end here isn't sharp, because you'll cut the headliner if it is. Let's try this again. Good. Now let's tighten up the visor bolts. Get this nice and snug so it doesn't slide out. Tighten up the other one. That's 1, 2, and 3. Make sure that it's in there good, and this is solid. Now we need to remove that plastic shield that goes on here. It's protecting this. I'm gonna scrape off this sticker too. And we're gonna put a little piece of felt right up against the glass. So if it vibrates, it doesn't tap against the glass, it taps against the felt. It'll just make it a lot quieter. And since this is mounted in, we'll take off the screws that bolt into the actual light. Here and here. That's 1 and 2. And this slides right out. I don't know why, but I love peeling this stuff off. Now we have our felt. Gotta peel that sticky backing off and tape it right to the part that's gonna rest against the windshield, just like so. Good. And now we can slide this back in here and screw down the light. Okay. Now I want to make sure that the light sits as tight as possible up against the windshield. So I'm going to loosen up the side screws and push the light up to force it against the glass. So now with this loose, I'm pushing upwards and tightening the screws to hold it in place. That's tight, and that's tight. And that's all it takes. Now this is nice and tight. You can hit the buttons, it's not going anywhere, and it's mounted flush against the windshield. Now I'm going to fly through the other side because you know how it's done. Just like doing your first brake job. The first side takes some trial and error, and the second side goes a lot faster. Alright, with the passenger side and driver's side in, we'll connect the 2 clips and tuck it into the headliner for a nice clean, wire-free install. Before you know it, look at that. Now that looks good. With those wires tucked in, we come over here, and then we have our long wire that goes to the cigarette lighter. And we want to tuck this in right down here and run it down all the way to the floor. We're running all our wires to the passenger side floorboard right over here. We'll start by getting it around this A-pillar plastic molding. And basically we want the wire to be hidden, so slip it behind the plastic and weather stripping so it's out of sight. Run it all the way down the door. Take off the plastic trim here and here. We're going to cut the light cigarette lighter adapter because it's not what we're going to be using. Let's pull up the carpet and snake that freshly cut wire under the carpet, across. We'll put that carpet back for now. And there you go, our first light is done. Alright, so they're wired in, and the reason why we're going to the center for the center console is because you can see right here, these wires coming through here. Well, these wires are from the old center console that was in here, and they're hot wires, so there's 12 volts running to them. They didn't do a very good job cutting them and capping them. They should have taped them up, but that's not the point. The point is we're going to run all our wires for all our lights and all of our accessories right here for the center console, and that's how we're going to power them. Since we're still working at the front of the car, let's go install our dash camera. Every police officer needs a dash camera so that what happens is recorded. This camera shoots in HD, it's wide angle, and we're going to mount it right up here. And then we're going to take this wiring harness and we're going to run it the same way we ran it with our visor lights all the way down, and then we're going to run it to our center console right here. Now that mirror is set up the way the officer likes it, and I think this dash cam would go great right behind the mirror just like that. You can't see it, it's not in the way, and it's basically there only if you ever need it. And this suction cups right to the glass, like so. Gotta plug in the power cord so when the car turns on, the camera turns on. And you can see that it's aimed perfect. I just need to get a memory card for this. And we'll run the wires across the headliner, behind the A-pillar trim, and down the same way we ran the visor lights. And that's all there is to it. A nice, clean, quick install. You can't even see it. So let's move on to our next step. The rear light bar. Now our rear light bar is going to be mounted right back here. It's going to look something like this. And it'll screw right into here. So we have to get to this deck cover here because this is just cardboard. So we want to be able to put a bolt through here with big washers so it supports it. Our cable is going to be running on the passenger side because the passenger side has a special tunnel for the cables, this plastic tunnel right here, that all the cables run through. So that's why we're picking the passenger side to run the wires to the front. So in order to get to the back here, we're gonna have to remove the seats. The seat bottom is really easy to pull out. You just lift up from the front and you could pull it out. Now getting this part of the seat out is a little bit more of a pain. The seat belts have to get undone. So we'll take off the passenger side seat belt first. This is an 18mm. There we go. Good. Take the belt off, and now the seat bracket is loose. So let's remove the bolt from the driver's side. Good. And then the back of the seat lifts right out. Just like so. Now to get this deck lid off, we need to get these dreaded Christmas tree clips out. And to do this, I'm using a panel clip pliers, which work awesome. I always used to break these Christmas tree clips, but now they pop right out. Look at that, no damage at all. So let's do the other side too. Boom. So now we're gonna take this screw, which is gonna go in from the top, and on the underside, we're going to use a large washer, which is going to help mount it securely by distributing any forces on the light bar over a large area, since this is only cardboard. So this whole light bar back here will be strongly secured. Now I put a piece of tape on the glass indicating the middle so we could center our traffic advisor. There has to be an even amount of lights on each side for it to be centered. And there are 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 lights on each side. Now let's just make sure there's nothing under the rear deck before we drill. It looks good, but there's a speaker that we need to be careful with. Now we could drill our holes using the light bar brackets as a guide. Good. Now we could add our screws to hold it in place so we could drill the other side. Beautiful. And the bolts slide right in. Now I'm going to use a piece of wood to prop this deck up. And I'm tightening down some nuts on those bolts so it'll hold it in place. And this is what it looks like all tightened down. Now let's go tighten down the other side. That's 1 tightened and 2 tightened. And we don't need this anymore. So let's put these 2 clips back in place. That's 1 and that's 2. Now I want to snake this wire behind the plastic panel here to hide it. And that looks real clean. And I'll do this the whole way down to the floor. And now I'm just tucking the wire out of sight. Now if we look under the carpet here on the passenger side, there's a hidden tube to run wires through. But our wire has a big cigarette lighter adapter on it. So let's cut that off since we're not using it. And we'll run the wire all the way to the front. Just snake the wire through here until it won't go anymore. At the front, here's our wire, and we can pull it the rest of the way through. Nice. So there we go. The wire runs neatly tucked away down the side here, through the tube from the rear to the front of the car. Now to get this seat back in, I need to make sure the middle seat belt is over the seat, just like that. Otherwise you can't use that seat belt. And if we look behind the seat, there's a spot to clip the seat in place. I just need to get the hook. There we go. And I'll do the same for the other side. Good. Now we need to tighten down the nut that holds the seatbelt in. And whenever you tighten down nuts or bolts for the seatbelt, make sure you torque them. Just like so. Both sides get torqued to 70 foot-pounds. And that's secured. Now we could install our seat. And the cushion slides right into these 2 clips. So close. Good. And good. I really had to put some backbone into this seat cushion, but it's in. Whew. Alright, that looks awesome. We got it wired up, nice and neat. The seat is back in, the wiring is all running up to here, and our dash cam and visor lights are installed. Now we have some stuff at the front of the car we need to install, and that stuff is a light bar and some mini LEDs. I'm taking up the siren because it's going to be in the way of our light bar, which goes right behind the grill, just like that. Now I'm going to mark the holes for the light bar mount with a marker. There's 1, We'll go to the other side. And here's the other. Now we can remove the light bar to drill the holes. This bit fits perfectly in the light bar mounting hole, so let's get drilling. It's going to be tough to get the drill in here because it's so tight. So instead, remember to work with the car. Let's take this grill out. Now we have all the space we need. Now let's see how good of a job we did aligning this. Beautiful. I'm going to hand screw this in here to align this side. And the other side lines up too. Great. Now we could snug down these screws. Good. And good. So with our light bar in the way, we need a new place to mount the siren. I'm thinking right off to the side here will be perfect. So let's mark up the holes to drill. I'm going to make that a little bit darker just because you could barely see it. And now let's drill them out. Now I'm going to mount the siren in place. It's tight in here, but let's get these bolts in. And the nut on. Can't forget about the bottom one. Man, that is tight. Got it. So with the siren in place, to better access the bolts from down here, we're going to remove the headlight. You saw me do this in the first episode, and it's pretty simple. Just got to remove these clips. Man, that was a tough one. Now the headlight comes right out. Now we have easy access to tighten the bolts. Awesome, and now the siren is secured in its new location. It's a good thing that we're relocating the siren so that the siren isn't blocking the radiator. And since we have a light bar up front now, we don't want any more air blocked. So moving this off to the side worked out nicely. Okay, now let's get this headlight back in place and slide in the two clips. Now, before we put the grill back on, let's install the mini LEDs. So these lights have a bracket which comes bent. You can see it right here, it's bent. But we want it to look like this, where it's nice and flat. So I'm going to bend all the brackets so they're flat. Just like so. That way when we mount them, the lights will sit flat against the bumper. Now under the Crown Vic, you can see the bumper already has holes. So I'm going to use these holes. And I'm going to align the bumper hole with the light bracket hole. And then I'll just drill the other side. This way, each side will be even. They'll be evenly spaced on this side, and they'll be evenly spaced on the other side. And I didn't even have to use a ruler. Now I'm going to use these brackets that came with the lights and cut them with tin snips to make my own washer. Now would you look at that? So let's get the light in place on one side, bolt it in, add a homemade washer, then a lock washer to prevent this nut from unscrewing due to vibration. Let's drill the other side. And bolt that in too. Make sure it's nice and snug. Good. So there we go. That's what each light will look like. Now I'm going to put one right next to it. Tighten that up. Drill a hole. And good. Now the other side will look just like this. And through the magic of editing, we got one finished and the other finished. Beautiful. Check this out. This is gonna look sick all lit up. I got the front light bar and bottom mini LEDs all mounted up. Next, we need to run some wires to the center console and build a center console, which will be pretty sweet because after watching that, you could build your own custom center console in your car, which actually looks good. I did that in my truck. So we'll be doing that, plus we'll be testing the lights on the street in the next episode of Project Police Interceptor, episode 4. So get pumped and stay tuned.